when I think of information architecture, I really think of, I'm going to kind of turn this a little bit upside down and think about elements of a great employee experience. Because at the end of the day, this trickle down effect to the employee is really going to be, why are we doing this to begin with, right? So Microsoft, at a number of the webinars that I've been attending, they sort of identified 6 elements of a great employee experience. Well-being, which we don't really talk about that much, but Microsoft has really been preaching that. Connection, having that, we're all working remote, we're going to be working remote in the future, but being connected to other employees. Obviously, I'm here in the United States, Southern California. Rob is in the Netherlands, but I still feel very connected to Rob because we talk often, we collaborate quite a bit. Having that focus on what the key, what's our end goal, and having that purpose and being able to grow, and then empowerment so that folks like Rob, myself, or other colleagues are able to really get that fire in our belly. That's what gets us up every day. So I know I sort of twisted this a little bit, but really thinking about, why are we doing this, and then what's the end goal?
Yeah, that part of the experiences component to Project Cortex and Viva. You've been very vocal about Viva and the topics experience and the insight side of Viva when you start looking at employee wellness and being able to measure the wellness of the organization based on how people are feeling in this Rona times that we're living in. It's very, very important, right? But coming back to what we were saying earlier on, how does Microsoft manage information architecture? Because in the old days, we remember the tag cloud from yesteryear, and we tag content with like a meta tag. And that's how we started driving search, the findability, right? A good friend of mine, Tracy van der Schyff, is able to, when she talks about search and how to find things, think about how you do a Google search, right? The second results page of Google is where all internet sites go to die, right? Because nobody clicks on the second page, right? Nobody does. But she's able to do a search for a Ducati Monster manual and come up with one result, right? So I don't know anyone outside of Agnes Molnar that spends all her life in search with the capability of doing that. So it's about the findability, but if we don't classify and categorize content correctly, you searching through, I've got one of 200,000 results, right? And with the advent of Project Cortex, and we're seeing, what is it called with, it's not topics, it's something else. I can't remember which Viva part this is, but this is SharePoint syntax. And being able to apply an AI model to this body of knowledge that you have, because everyone says it's going to take us a year to re-architect our information architecture because the product is new, and yet we still want to be able to identify, categorize, and classify and apply some sort of rights management and records management and information protection to the content. We've got 172 million documents that we want to move across to Microsoft 365. And what Microsoft has gone and said, well, let's give you some AI. Rob, you were talking about AI yesterday. You've obviously seen what Microsoft has done around entity relationships and entity extractors of a body of knowledge that you push in, and then being able to apply these models to classify and categorize content inside of your content store. You've all seen this specific demo that Microsoft does around document understanding. That's what I was looking for. And it actually detracts from having to worry about manual classification, right? I mean, you build out an entity model and you say, well, apply this entity model or this entity extraction process to a body of knowledge. And in so doing, you can use artificial intelligence and machine learning to actually categorize and classify the new way of working with content. So for me, when I look at information architecture standards, being able to circumvent someone eyeballing 172 million documents because they want to classify it, although you do bring across the metadata with that, it's just an easier way of being able to label content inside of your organization.
Yeah, so this is a classic one, obviously. And I must say that the recent developments, which we also see in this platform, are quite interesting, because in all those years, in my beginning of my career as an information professional, I was very strict about information architecture. You had to classify everything. It needed to be precise. You had to use thesauri to get the language disambiguation and all of those difficult things, leading to an overhead that was practically unmanageable because you had to apply everything manually. There was no automation in that sense. And with the advance of AI, and there were earlier versions of AI, pretty crude, of course, getting it wrong all the time, so introducing less findability instead of increasing it. I think we're now at the, not saying that we're all there yet, because you still have to put effort into training models and stuff, but the intelligence, the algorithms have improved in such a way that that burden actually has become a lot less of late, and it's quite recent actually, and it's still evolving. So yeah, I also played around like many people with the new features, obviously, and I'm quite surprised to see in what short time you can attain, of course, a still simple classification within a certain subdomain of the business. So if you distribute that burden across business, I think they now for the first time will get the tooling in hand, which allows them in a relatively short time frame to automate at least the classification and some entity extraction, which gives you the business context to your otherwise unstructured content, because that's still the root cause of this problem. Obviously, it's not structured data. The business context is not applied from the start. It has to be bolted on in hindsight or during the processing of that information. So I think we now got for the first time, the tooling that is understandable for a broad audience, for business people, business analysts at least, you know, but all those are interested could easily learn this kind of technology to apply it and make their life a lot easier than that of their colleagues.